Afternoon. We got a late show today. You see the title, Happy Labor Day. It says Labor Day, but Happy Labor Day. We got football and baseball. Yeah, that's right. We got one football game left on this weekend, and then we got a bunch of Labor Day baseball game picks. So for the big game tonight on Monday Night Football, not the real Monday Night Football, but Monday Night College Football, we got Florida State money line, but I do have Boston College, depending on what they let you buy points up to. You can buy it up to 18 or 18 and a half, but I got it for plus 21 and plus 24, Boston College. Then in the MLB, we got the Baltimore Orioles. We have the Houston Astros. We got the San Diego Padres, the New York Mets, and the Chicago Cubs, all money line. Now, if you stick around, I may have some more bonuses. Well, it's not I do have some bonuses, but you got to watch the rest of the show for the extra picks. Now, there's a lot going on in the world of college football. As you guys know, Coach Prime won on Thursday, so shout out to Colorado. But we also had some big losers along with big winners this week. Now, with the Florida State game, the main issue that a lot of people are going to be worrying about is can Mike Norvell get back to what he did with Jordan Travis? Because everybody wants to dump on DJU, but he actually did pretty well last week, throwing for 193 yards, no interceptions, but no touchdowns. But a lot of the passes were safe passes. They were short passes, and the running game didn't deliver for him. And also just the play calling was not innovative enough. So that's not his fault. But, you know, some quarterbacks like a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward, they'll kind of veer off from what they're told to do, and they'll shoot it down the field anyway. Maybe he has to, take some initiative and get in his coach ear like, hey, believe in me, man, because this is my last year before I go to the NFL. Because Florida State does have the tools to win. Let's not fool ourselves. Georgia Tech is much improved with Haynes King at quarterback and Jamal Haynes at running back, but also Georgia Tech played the game of their life and still were held to only 21 points until the game-winning field goal. Florida State's defense on a bad day only gave up 21 points. So if you can get any kind of pulse from the offense, what can that be? Could that be at least a 9-win, maybe an 8-win team? Yeah. But one thing I will say, with all the top recruits that Florida State has on the bench, including LaWayne McCoy from Miami Central, they got the Moore kid from up there in the DMV. If their older receivers are not going to produce, I'd rather young guys make mistakes and get experience for next year. And the same thing with DJU. If you don't believe in them, give them one more shot and then throw the young top recruits you have like Croman Hope or Brock Glenn or maybe even Trevor Jackson, because I believe Trevor Jackson has a lot of Travis in him, Jordan Travis in him. So I can see the former 4-star out of Orlando being the guy that Mike Norvell defers to, because I've seen him getting a lot of reps in practice. I know it's just practice, but just like with LSU taking an L, though they did perform kind of well, better than I thought, I told you guys all throughout August, I was watching different teams and their training camp videos, and the film doesn't lie. Whether it's game film, practice film, it doesn't lie. Poor preparation is going to produce poor performance. Just like proper preparation produces the best type of performance, So I feel like LSU showed up against USC, and so did USC on the defensive end. You got to give them their credit. Like I told someone earlier, there's not always a bad loss. Sometimes you can have bad wins where your team is fooled and they think they're better than they are, and they actually got out there, by the skin of their teeth. Not saying that happened for USC, but what I saw last night, LSU has enough offense and defense to beat anybody in the SEC. Will they win the SEC? No, but they can play spoiler to a lot of teams. But let's go over some of the wins and losses from Saturday. When we look at the 34-3 shellacking that Georgia gave Clemson, I mean, it speaks for themselves. Or does it? Because if we dig deeper into it, a lot of people think that they're going to be able to run over Clemson. Not so fast, my friend. Clemson defense held them to 6-0 going into the half. But I've been a part of the defense when I was in high school, even in college, where it's only so long you can hold them until it's like you keep going back on the field. You keep going back on the field. The offense is 3 and out. And after a while, it's like the bend but don't break. Too much water is going to make any type of levee break. Shout out to New Orleans. But it's like basically you can't apply that much pressure on your defense. You know, I heard somebody make a comment earlier. You know, it's bad when your defensive coordinator is telling his kids, don't worry about the offense. We're going to have to score on defense like the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Newsflash. Clemson has a great defense, but you don't have Warren Sapp. You don't have Derrick Brooks. So you got to live in reality. Okay, so now let's move on to another game that went on Saturday. A lot of people were surprised that Texas actually covered against a highly acclaimed Colorado State. Texas won 52-0. Their backup quarterback got to play. He was playing around, throwing side passes and scoring touchdowns. So shout out to Arch Manning, shout out to Quinn Ewers. Then my alma mater, Ole Miss, they won 76-0 against Foreman. I mean, you can go look it up. Jackson Dart's one of the top Heisman candidates at quarterback. So he threw for 418 yards. I believe he had 5 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown. Yeah, my grandmother can't even stand it. She making faces right now seeing that stat. Yeah, that's deplorable. Yeah, it was a scary movie, rated R. Then we go to Notre Dame and Texas A&M. I told you guys, never go against Ty Sports picks. I told you, on the road. I told you, like they got the Junior Mafia. Texas A&M is part of the SEC, but they're the junior varsity. Because they allowed Notre Dame to go in their house. It was tied 13-13 most of the game. At first, it was 6-6. Then it was 13-13 deadlock. Neither quarterback threw for over 200 yards. These defenses, when they perform in the offense, show a little bit. They're not to LSU and USC level, but they also can beat anybody. So you have teams that are elite teams, and then you have teams that can beat elite teams. They just can't do it on a consistent basis. So I won't say to LSU's level, but Texas A&M is not to be taken lightly. Even though they took a loss, they had a jump touchdown, field goal at the end because it was a 7-point game. Notre Dame kicked the field goal to put a little distance because it really was 20-13. So shout out to both defenses, both offenses. We got to improve, but you were going against it. Then we had Penn State versus West Virginia on the road. That actually was another deadlock game. But in the second half, Penn State distanced themselves. A lot of people were speaking up on Drew Aller, but he only threw for 216. I'm not saying he's not good, but West Virginia performed well, better than the score showed in a 34-12 loss. Then we got Michigan. They won 30-10 against Fresno State. But if Michigan doesn't get that quarterback situation correct, it'll be a lot of L's. I picked Michigan to beat Texas in the preseason. I'm gonna have to make a U-turn. That's why you always got to keep your receipts, because I'm not going with Michigan this week. I may go with them to cover, but for them to beat Texas with the performance I saw this week, I mean, they didn't stick to the run game. Their defense had to do a lot of heavy lifting. One of their touchdowns was an interception to the crib. So if you take that away, they really won 23-10 against Fresno State. Now, Fresno State is no slouch, but they're still a G5 school, and they're not the top. They're not South Florida. They're not Memphis, Tulane. I can see if it was one of those guys. It's just Fresno State. Now, another place where I was right, Oklahoma State against South Dakota State. Everybody was scared of South Dakota State because they saw Colorado and North Dakota State. But Oklahoma State at home is deadly, 44-20. And neither team showed a bad showing. I think South Dakota State putting up 20 points against Oklahoma State on the road showed why they're the top champions in the FCS. But Oklahoma State showed why them along with Kansas State and Utah are the top teams in the Big 12. Now let's go to the show that everybody watched. I think it broke records on ABC, one of the most watched games ever. Florida versus Miami at home. A lot of people are not going to want to hear this. I hear a lot of people screaming for Florida to fire their coach, to put DJ Lagway in. Sometimes if you don't got nothing good to say, just keep your mouth closed. You don't know what you're talking about. I watched the game. Now, this is not to the LSU level, but again, Florida, I only expected 8 or 7 wins. I didn't expect the 4. So I hope you took over the 4. If you actually watched that game, similar to Florida State, they didn't trust their playmakers as much, but they did it a little bit more than Florida State. The main issues is their defensive line is not good at pass rushing, but they are good at stopping the run. That's why Miami had to get innovative with the run game, and they had to pass their way out of it because Miami has 2 of the top running backs in the country. And even their backup is the number 1 freshman in the country in the class of 2024, Jordan Loud. So for them to be limited on the ground the way they were, Florida actually outrushed them. Montrell Johnson had 106. I know a lot of that was on that big, I think, 70-yard run where the safety was lined up in the wrong spot. But Florida showed enough to me that if they don't overreact, they can get about 7 or 8 wins. And I feel like Texas A&M in 2 weeks coming to Florida may be upset because I know what people were complaining about Florida, talent difference, this, that, and the third. Look, you got to understand, that's not a regular Miami team. Miami might be back. And Cam Ward, he is a Heisman quarterback. If he doesn't win the Heisman, he'll definitely be a finalist. You know, it was just a lot going on, but I was able to see Florida make Cam Ward have to get out the pocket, make Cam Ward have to be innovative. That's why he threw that interception earlier, because it wasn't like if he was the average quarterback. Let's say DJU from Florida State was quarterbacking for Miami. Miami probably still wins, but it's not 41-17. So a lot of people see wins and losses and they see scores. You got to actually watch the game and know what to look for. Florida was able to stop the run to a certain extent. Florida was able to move the ball with their passing game. They just weren't able to connect down the field because, like I told you guys, Lance Guidry, last year, Miami was led by their defense and their defensive coordinator. Everybody thought because they sent 4 defensive backs to the NFL that nobody would be able to play. But they kept one starter from last year because they played 5 DBs. And then some of the guys that were replaced either started at other schools or they rotated. Like Jaden Harris that had 1 interception, dropped another one. He rotated for Cam Kitchens of the Rams because Cam Kitchens was hurt for a couple of games, so he had experience. Damari Brown started against Florida State. Jadaeus Richards started against Florida State, and then the only freshman that had no experience, OJ Frederick, he's already convinced everybody because he was a 3-star. He overstepped Ryan Mack, that was the 4-star that used to be a 3-star that was an All-American, and he came in the camp late and basically forced his way on the field and forced his way into a starting spot. So everybody knew that he was going to perform well. And De'Ani Hill had experience with Lance Guidry and with Chevis Jackson. So don't underestimate Florida, overestimate Miami. But let's move on. Now we got Virginia Tech and Vanderbilt. Virginia Tech came back from 17 down. Then the quarterback cramps up. They go to overtime and they lose. But Kyron Drones did throw for 322 yards. I know a lot of people are like, Virginia Tech's not what they said they were. Look, sometimes you lose, sometimes you win. But betting against Virginia Tech, other than that Miami game, that may not be good for your health. And that may not be good for your pocketbook. So you might want to just hold off. I went to Ole Miss. I've been a part of teams that lost to Vanderbilt, and they still went on to go to bowl games and win. Vanderbilt is just, you hear the dog barking in the background. They don't like Vanderbilt neither. Vanderbilt is just one of those scrappy teams. Okay, so now let's move on to Maryland and UConn. I was kind of skeptical of Maryland because I didn't know if they would be able to replace their quarterback. Well, guess what? There's a guy named Billy Edwards. Never heard of him. I don't know if you ever heard of him. Billy Edwards Jr. He is a junior, but Billy Edwards Jr. So shout out to your dad. This guy starting in his first start, I believe, for Maryland. Throws for 311 and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Quarterback rating of 86.9. So Maryland looks like they're back intact. So Maryland will be a threat. They won't be a threat to win the Big Ten, but some of those middle of the road teams like the Rutgers, the Nebraska's teams that think they're going to get easy wins against Maryland. No. And that defense is still there, and that running game, like me and Jay was saying, they won 50-7 over UConn. So UConn, pack it up. Go start basketball practice. It's basketball season for you guys. Okay, so now let's look out for Syracuse. Now, I was looking at for all the Miami fans worrying about games that they need to worry about. Thanksgiving weekend, Miami's last game before possibly the ACC championship, they're going at Syracuse. And all of you old school Miami Hurricane fans know what it's like to go up to Syracuse. It's no joke. Well, Syracuse defense was bend but don't break, but their quarterback, Kyle McCord, the head coach jokingly said to Ohio State, I'm thankful that you guys let him go so I can take him, because Kyle McCord, the one they said wasn't good, threw for 354. So they won 38-22 over a good Ohio team. This is not Ohio State, but Ohio's one of those good group of 5 teams. Boise State was in a dogfight on the road against Georgia Southern. Their running back, Ashton Gentry, he's one of the only running backs in the Heisman conversation. He ran for 267 yards in a 56-45 win. Boise State, you were supposed to be a playoff team. If you're giving up 45 points, I don't see you going to the playoffs. Yeah, you scored 56, but you got to get that defense right, man. And for your running back to have to run for 267, you guys got to take that wear and tear off of his back. Y'all need to get a backup or somebody to rotate with that guy. Okay, so now let's look at South Carolina. The big game this week is South Carolina at Kentucky. South Carolina made it out through the skin of their teeth, 23-19 against Old Dominion. Yeah, South Carolina. You guys might be having to root for your basketball team. Shout out to Dawn Staley because it looks like football season over for you guys. Old Dominion is an okay group of 5 team, but there's no way you're going to go into Kentucky and win if you only scoring 23 points against a G5 team. Okay, so now South Florida. South Florida shellacking Bethune-Cookman. Rick Ross, I know your son played for Bethune. You probably need to donate some NIL money so they can get some better players. Bethune loses 48-3 against South Florida. Yeah. It seemed like FAMU then took all their players. Okay, so let's look at another thing that I like on Saturday night. Arizona State against Wyoming. Everybody was picking Wyoming either with the points or they were picking the money line. Arizona State actually showed up. Addition by subtraction. They got rid of a bunch of guys that didn't want to be there. Elijah Badger, he loved the school, but he just wanted a better chance at the draft, so he went to Florida. He caught a couple passes, like 3 on Saturday. But long story short, shout out to Sam Levitt that threw for 285 in a win that was 48-7. Arizona State big over a good Wyoming team. So Arizona State might have something to say to Arizona and Utah and the Kansas States of the Big 12. I told you the Big 12 is not the best conference, but it's the most balanced top to bottom conference. It's very competitive. Georgia Tech blows out Georgia State 35-12. Haynes King, he threw for 275. Haynes King does what he does. Like some people have told me, Haynes King is probably going to be an NFL mid-round pick, late round pick. He'll make a decent backup. He has a lot of Gardner Minshew in him. He may be able to earn himself a starting role. I'm not saying he's a first-day draft pick, but Haynes King does a lot of good things. He's mobile. He makes the right throws. Sometimes he makes the wrong throws, but he's not afraid to slink it. One of the biggest surprises was Auburn. Shout out to Hugh Freeze. He got Peyton Thorne to throw for 322. Now, granted, it was against Alabama A&M, but some people, they go against Alabama A&M or North Alabama, whoever, and they struggle. So basically, Auburn won 73-3. So shout out to Auburn. They got Cal coming to them this week, so it's not going to be as easy. Then we move on to UCLA. They went to Hawaii. Now, we all know Hawaii is a football school. They're nothing to play with. But UCLA barely made it out, 16-13. Come on, man. You guys got a lot of African-Americans on your staff. Shout out to Deshaun Foster. I'm rooting for you. I saw you in the Super Bowl when you glided into the end zone. I was a fan ever since. But, man, you got to come with the offense. I know you got the defense. UCLA was one of the best defensive teams in the Pac-12. That's actually UCLA's old coordinator that got USC defense playing good last night in the Big Ten. But you guys in the Big Ten, I know the Big Ten is a defensive running game conference, but you still got to put up some points, especially in the West Coast. It's no excuse. You guys breed quarterbacks. I saw a write-up the other day where it was saying that I want to say like 30-something% of the starting Power 5 or Power 5 quarterbacks are either from Texas or from California. That's from all over, all conferences. So it's a lot of Texas guys. I mean, Cam Ward's from Texas, back in the day, Ken Dorsey was from California. So teams from Texas and California, quarterback and throwing the ball should never be an issue. That should be more of a southern issue because we got the wide receivers, but sometimes we don't have the throwers. That's why Miami got the guy out of Georgia, out of Milton High School, one of the top ranked schools, Luke Nickel. Hopefully he'll be following in Cam Ward's footsteps. Now, tonight's game, Florida State versus Boston College, is very pivotal, as I said before. The line is minus 16.5. You actually can buy points. But the biggest thing is we want to see if Florida State's defense can play to their full potential because the pass defense played well, but that interior run defense wasn't so good. And the defensive linemen, they were getting upfield, getting to the quarterback, but they weren't keeping contained. We want to see them contain Thomas Castile. Also, I want to see what Bill O'Brien, formerly of the Patriots, formerly of Penn State, and the guy that got Deshaun Watson balling out in Houston. I want to see what he does with Castile. Can he do a similar job that Alabama did this year and last year with taking Jalen Milroe from just a runner to a passer, because a lot of these athletic quarterbacks, their talent is being wasted because they don't get a coach that helps them learn. A lot of these coaches just want to find a stake in the garbage can. What is that? Finding a stake in the garbage can is you want somebody else to train them up, and then you want to take the credit. No, a guy like Bill O'Brien, an NFL coach, he's built on teaching, because in the NFL, you can't recruit really. You can draft, but for the most part, you got to take the guys you have and give them the knowledge that you have. So I'm really looking forward to Florida State making a bounce back. If they can't bounce back, then it's time to put the freshmen in and get ready for next year, because they have a lot of good young guys. I don't know where they get this Florida State doesn't recruit thing from. Even those transfers that they had, a lot of those transfers for Florida State in 23 and 22, I just answered it. They were there in 23 and 22. And some of them were there in 21. Jordan Travis was actually there for like 4 years. So that's not really a transfer to me. That's kind of like a JUCO player. Only true transfers or free agents I count are guys that are one and done. But if you come to my program and you get better, or you come to my program and you're there for multiple years, then you're a Florida State Seminole. Are you a Miami Hurricane or Ole Miss Rebel? I hate when they say, oh, you can't recruit. Recruiting, whether you're in the portal or in high school, you're still recruiting. At the end of the day, because that's another topic I want to touch on. People are criticizing Dabo Swinney and Clemson for not using the transfer portal, but then they're criticizing Florida State and Colorado for using the transfer portal. Make up your mind. At the end of the day, Miami used the portal and they used high school. Georgia used a little bit of the portal, but mostly high school. Georgia and Clemson roster is very similar. They got a couple of transfers at Georgia, but at the end of the day, just because everybody's doing it doesn't mean you have to do it. Michigan didn't really have any significant transfers last year. So this whole narrative that you have to do it because everybody's doing it, hey, if everybody jumps off a bridge, are you going to go jump? At the end of the day, you got to do what works for you. The reason why Clemson is losing is because they lost their defensive coordinator. It took them a while. They replaced Brent Venables, but they have not been able to replace with their offensive coordinator brought in. I believe that I watched the spring game. Clemson actually has a quarterback on their roster, but the head coach is being stubborn. There's a guy named Trentman or something like that. You go look him up. I saw him in the spring game. He outplayed Cade Klubnik. You got a lot of coaches that they'll be stubborn and they'll bring their whole team down, the whole organization down because they want to be right. Cade Klubnik, he shows some good things, but he's not big time. He's not box office. That backup quarterback at Clemson, let me look up Clemson roster really quick so I can tell you the young man's name. I hate when I get people's name wrong. They have a backup. If they ever put him in the game, you will see a totally different Clemson. Now, they did use TJ Moore and they did use Brian Westcott, but they used them sparingly. Both of them got like 1 or 2 catches. You gotta improve on that. Tyler Brown needs to get the ball. Williams needs to get the ball. Antonio Williams, but I feel like Westcott and Troy Stellato, the Florida guy, the South Florida guy, I think he's from Palm Beach County. Those are the guys that have to get the ball. I like Adam Randall, but these possession receivers, man, no, you need guys that stretch the field. I'm not seeing the quarterback that I was thinking about. I see Christopher Vizina, but I don't see the other guy I was talking about. But there's a guy, I can't think of his name, like Pyramid. I'm going to go look up their roster because this is the depth chart. I'm going to just look up Clemson roster. I hope the kid didn't transfer, but maybe he did because he saw that the coach wasn't going to play him. But I saw Clemson spring game. A lot of people like, oh, that's just a spring game. That's just practice. Okay, we saw Miami spring game and we saw Cam Ward. If you ever played the game or even if you've been around it enough, you can tell what it is when you see it, because at the end of the day, like when I'm in practice or when I'm in a scrimmage, it's still being filmed and guys are still going hard and they're trying to win. So everybody like, oh, you got to prove this, you got to prove that. That's people that don't really know football. I'm trying to find it. Okay, yeah, Trent Pyramid. He's the best quarterback on Clemson roster. He's a redshirt sophomore. He walked on. He was like all state in the state of South Carolina, turned down smaller school scholarships to go to Clemson. He should be starting at Clemson. So all you Clemson fans need to inbox Dabo. I know, and that's another thing. Dabo Swinney knows he's wrong because he's now made it where at his live radio show, the Dabo Swinney show, the Clemson football show, he doesn't allow fans to call in and ask him questions anymore. You want to know why? Because he doesn't want anybody calling him out on running the program into the ground. So a lot of people have said it. Either Dabo needs to adapt or Dabo needs to retire like Nick Saban. But that's going to be my show for the day. You see the picks on the screen. Oh, no, let me bring it back up. So the picks are no, ignore those. Those are Saturday's picks. But that's proof that I was right about a lot of things because a lot of those Saturdays picks came true. Except for I think the Michigan went through. But let's go back to today's picks. So again, today we got Florida State money line, we got Boston College plus 21 or plus 24, and then we got Baltimore Orioles money line in MLB. We got Houston Astros money line. We got San Diego Padres, New York Mets, and the Chicago Cubs. That's going to be my show for today. I hope you guys enjoy your family on Labor Day. Enjoy some ribs or some chicken, steak, whatever you got on the grill, some burgers. And go put those picks in, and let's get this money. Also, down at the bottom, the Cash App is $TYRebel22. The Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok is at Ty Sports Picks 24. I'm going to leave these picks up for a second, and then we're going to get out of here. Okay, so that should be enough times. I'm going to enjoy my holiday, and I hope you enjoy yours. See you tomorrow. How long did your